The DEA has said, in a letter to me actually, that THCO is an illegal synthetic form of THCO, so she should lose.
He's wrong, and this and that, and blah, blah, blah. And here we go, we have Fourth Circuit Court confirming what you said was 100% correct.
The days of where you could just buy flour and feel comfortable about it without much of a COA and chain of custody are gone.
Well, what about the lieutenant governor's interim charges? They're trying to put you out of business. I'm like, bro, this is like every other month.
If you want this industry to continue, now is the time to get involved.
Hi everybody, Lukas with Hometown Hero. Today we have a very special guest, one of my great friends, Kight.
Hello.
Thank you for joining us as always.
Always good to be here.
And wanted to pick your brain on the recent Fourth Circuit decision. It's really fascinating, it's really interesting, and I wanted to do a little bit of a deep dive in you. It's over in your neck of the woods as well.
That's right, Fourth Circuit.
Yeah. So I guess if you want to start, give us a quick rundown on sort of what happened and what the conclusion reached from the Fourth Circuit case were, because it's highly relevant and really eliminates a lot of these people saying that what we do is based on a loophole. They very, very adamantly, the judges, attacked that and said, no, it's not.
Yeah, well, so I'll give a quick sort of rundown, then we can break it down. So what we're talking about is the Fourth Circuit Court of Appeals. For those of you that are not familiar with the federal court system, it's a three-leveled system. So we have our district courts. Those are like the trial level courts. They're all over the country. Those trial level courts, if there's an appeal, go to the circuit courts. And then if there's appeal from that, it just goes to the Supreme Court. It's sort of like a pyramid. And so this was at the level of the Fourth Circuit Court of Appeal, which is the Southeast for the most part. It's, South Carolina, North Carolina, Maryland, Virginia, West Virginia, some of those states. And the Fourth Circuit was deciding a case as an employment discrimination case about a woman who had used hemp products, tested positive on the company's drug test, which that's a whole nother issue. Why are companies testing right now for cannabis use regardless? But in any event, she tested positive on a drug screen and
twice.
She failed the first test, and then she tested again. She failed again, and then they fired her. She made a claim against the company for various different claims, all amounting essentially to discrimination based on her use off of work hours of a legal product. And she lost at the district court level. She appealed, and when she appealed, the company said, well, she said I was using lawful hemp products. And one of the products that she was using contained THCO acetate, commonly known as THCO. THCO, as a lot of the viewers will know, is a cannabinoid that is derived from the cannabis plant, but the cannabis plant doesn't produce it. And so the company that she worked for raised that as a defense. Oh, wait a second, court, she wasn't using lawful products. The DEA has said, in a letter to me actually, about a year and a half ago, that THCO is an illegal synthetic form of THCO, so she should lose. And this is where it's all building to. The Fourth Circuit, one of the most, maybe the most conservative courts in the country, said THCO is actually legal. We don't care what the DEA has said. The unambiguous, and that's the term they use, the unambiguous language of the Farm Bill says that derivatives of hemp are lawful, and THCO is a derivative. It's not synthetic because it's not totally synthetic. It comes from hemp, and therefore THCO is legal. Now, the sad sort of piece about that is the woman actually didn't win her case, and the reason is because the court said that, well, she never actually offered into evidence the fact, what product she was using. So the court doesn't know if in fact she was using, a legal hemp product or an illegal marijuana product. So unfortunately for her, she lost the case. But for the hemp industry at large, this was a huge win. And I'll stop there just because this is sort of framing out kind of where the case is. The direct result was that THCO, the court declared, was lawful despite the DEA's contention that it wasn't. But there are a lot of other sort of things that this means for the hemp industry.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I was reading some quick information on it, and everything that I read essentially said that the court found that the Farm Bill, like you said, was unambiguous and clearly iterated that hemp and everything from hemp is fully legal, including THCO, which there's been a lot of contention around just within our industry.
Sure.
Of people, playing armchair quarterback and trying to figure out what's what and what's legal. and you're, obviously one of the foremost experts within the industry, and you've always held the position that THCO is legal, correct?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a derivative, and so this all started back with Delta 8. So the DEA, back in what feels like 1,000 years ago, it was probably 3 years ago or something, said that Delta 8 was a synthetic form of THC and therefore was illegal. But I had always contended, in legal opinion letters and in thinking it through and talking with scientists and everything, that a derivative is exactly that. It is something that is derived from hemp, and Delta 8 was derived from hemp, in that most of the Delta 8 on the market is an isomerization of CBD.
Correct.
So CBD is hemp if you use the definition in its most literal way, its unambiguous way. CBD is hemp. If you isomerize CBD, convert that to Delta 8, that is a derivative, which is also hemp. And so this is one of the many interesting things about this case. That is the AK Futures case back on the Ninth Circuit. The Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals is California, Oregon, Washington. It's considered to be the most liberal court. So we've got over here the Fourth Circuit, one of the most conservative courts in the country on the East Coast, that was referencing the Ninth Circuit case that said that Delta 8 was legal because it was a derivative. And so the Fourth Circuit and the Ninth Circuit are here agreeing, which for people who follow these types of things in the law, that doesn't happen a whole lot.
Yeah, I'd be very curious in history what they've actually agreed on, and I'm willing to bet it's a very small list.
Like lawyers working in the Fourth Circuit make it a point not to cite cases to the Ninth Circuit if they don't have to, because that's like, oh, the Ninth Circuit, there's liberal, but they really focused on the Ninth Circuit. And so here's two cases from both sides of the country talking about what a derivative is, and it's what we've been talking about all along. And to your point, right off the bat here, what we get in the hemp industry all the time, it's been years and I get it almost every day. We have people on the other side, whether they represent corporate marijuana or whether they're regulators or whatever, who don't like hemp, who are saying this was not the intent of the Farm Bill.
Loophole.
It's a loophole, right? And so
I've heard that word so many times, and it drives me crazy.
Drives me crazy.
I'm pretty sure that's why they do it at this point.
Yeah, right. Just to get on our nerves.
They just know it gets under our skin.
But that's, here's two courts on the opposite ends of the political and national spectrum talking about similar issues and saying that the Farm Bill is unambiguous.
Yeah.
This is what it says.
It's as clear as can be. When you read the Farm Bill, the section on hemp, with the isomers and the salts, and essentially everything from hemp is legal, there is no loophole. It's very clear what it says.
It's very clear what it says. And the other thing that I don't understand is, so you're all about cannabis reform. I'm all about cannabis reform. Most of the people in the industry on all sides of the equation are ostensibly about cannabis reform, and then the people that push back the hardest are not even the prohibitionists, but the people that are supposedly for cannabis reform, and they're like, oh no, but this is a loophole. We need to close the loophole. I'm like, what are you talking about?
Put people in jail for this.
Yeah.
It's like, whoa.
Yeah, cannabis has been descheduled. The sole difference is and this is what both courts have said multiple times in the opinions, the sole distinction between marijuana and hemp is the concentration of Delta 9, and so they're saying, oh no, we need to so cannabis is effectively with one small little barrier, is descheduled. And they say, oh no, we need to reschedule, put it back on the controlled substances list, and let's continue down this path over here, which we need to. I mean, cannabis in all its forms needs to be completely and utterly descheduled for sure. But like, here we've got it, we're almost there, and they want to put it back in the box. I don't even understand that. So back to the point is, here we have a court, in an area of the country where there isn't a whole lot of marijuana reform, that is supporting the legal status of hemp. And I think that's fantastic. Whether or not you think that THCO itself, is something that people should be taking or not, I get it. THCO is something that the plant doesn't produce. There's a lot of people that say, I only want to consume things that the plant produces. It does produce Delta 8, as we know. But most of the products on the market are an isomerization, and there are good and bad ways to do that. But the bottom line is, if you believe that you should only be consuming the natural thing, fine, that's great. But let's move towards cannabis reform, and then we from that we build regulations and safety protocols and how to manufacture things properly and how to keep it out of the hands of minors and all of those things. But this is the baseline. This is how we start really building the fundamental structure for cannabis reform.
I just want to say I'm very happy to have you on our side in this industry.
Well, I'm happy to have you on our side, man. It takes everybody.
Yeah, it's fun having allies that are friends of yours, and you get to kind of trudge through this. And I love calling you, be like, Rod, what did they do? Why are they doing this? Let's talk about another one real quick. So in Texas right now, hot topic. We're getting a lot of questions about this. There's raids going on. There's store raids going on. My understanding is all Allen County, or have they gone outside Allen County?
I believe it's all Allen County, but it may be expanding. It's happening in Texas. It's also, as we're filming today, literally there are raids in North Carolina on the eastern side of the country for very similar reasons. And that is there's a lot of a focus on THCA flower and other products. There's some focus on counterfeit products. We can talk about that in a minute. And so what we have is Texas and North Carolina are arguably the two of the best hemp states. And I'm not saying there's other great hemp states, and I represent clients throughout West Virginia and Tennessee and but in terms of volume and in terms of laws that really are helpful to hemp, these are the two states, and we're seeing raids happen.
Well, quick tangent, we just looked at numbers for California. We looked at their marijuana sales data. Mm-hmm. The hemp industry in Texas is, I think at this point, like 6 times larger than the marijuana industry in California.
Exactly.
It's crazy.
And you know what's happening as a tangent on that tangent is that, we're getting calls literally every day from West Coast marijuana operators who are like, either they're done, either like, we're out of marijuana, we're going into hemp, or they're expanding into hemp. And man, I welcome, thank you.
I love it.
Come on in. It's all about cannabis.
We've been saying this forever. Come join us.
Yep.
We need allies.
And where do they go? They go to Texas and they go to North Carolina.
Yep.
And so other states out there, legislators, regulators, people who are lobbying, your state can be there too. You can welcome these companies and this industry, because it's bringing reform, it's bringing tax dollars, it's bringing jobs, it's bringing money into the state.
In Texas, it's estimated there are 50,000 jobs that have been created by this industry, hundreds of millions of dollars a year in tax revenue. Yeah. I mean, it's insane.
It is insane. It's insane. Florida is fighting a big fight. We were just talking about Florida earlier.
Yep. Amendment 3 and all the drama there.
All the drama there, and so it's really disappointing that we have this quote unquote sort of civil war, but it's only there because of the monoliths, these big corporate interests that want to control. It's not about safety, because
it's state-sanctioned monopoly.
It's a state-sanctioned monopoly, and that's the only thing that the hemp industry has a beef with.
Yep.
Come on in. We're happy to have a big industry where everybody competes. Just don't give away a monopoly. We're happy to have more refined regulations and more, all that is great.
It's so wild to me that the hemp industry, like, we're so accepting. Like, we want marijuana companies to come into hemp. We see it as sort of a compliment, right? Like, oh, they're realizing that what we're doing is actually better.
Right.
They're coming to join us. Like, no hemp companies are going into marijuana.
Exactly.
Nobody.
You'd
be laughed out of the building. Like, if I brought that up to my guys, they'd be like, you're an idiot.
I know.
They'd fire me. So, the fact that the marijuana companies are coming into hemp is beautiful. I love seeing that, but it is quite telling that there's literally no hemp companies going into marijuana.
None at all.
None.
Yeah, why would you want to do that?
Why would you bother with that?
Yeah, it's crazy. So this, this is this ongoing thing. We've got the Farm Bill is where this all comes from. And the Farm Bill is set to expire here soon. It was set to expire last year. There was an extension. We're coming up on another expiration. Almost certainly there's going to be another extension. We don't know how long that's going to last. We don't know when the next Farm Bill is going to come. The battle at the level of the Hill in DC is not about hemp. I mean, there's a big sort of sub battle that's going on, but the Farm Bill is 1,000 pages of really dense agricultural policy, and there are a few hangups between the Republicans and the Democrats about some things, and that's just keeping it from happening. An extension is fine. I mean, the hemp industry was built on the 2018 Farm Bill primarily. It started with the 2014, but it's really built on it. And so we're fine, proceeding. We want another Farm Bill with this, with the same definition of hemp. Should the FDA or some other federal agency get involved to kind of help with regulation? Sure, that's fine. Should states continue to regulate in a correct way? Yes, I think those things are important. But let's not pull the rug out from a whole industry that has been built on this single definition that needs to stay, without a doubt.
Back to the raids in Texas.
Yeah.
What are they going into these stores over? What are they telling the store owners? What are they taking? What are they doing? I guess you've got some clients that are involved in this, so I'm kind of curious on the details of it.
Yeah, the details are typically it's I will say it's triggered by sales to minors, and we've got some information that maybe that's happening.
Are they doing stings?
Maybe that's not.
Are they sending like underage? Because I know with alcohol they'll do that. They'll send in. They'll send in people to try and buy.
That's what they're saying. There's a little bit of sort of back and forth, and there are people out there that are handling it at a very granular level, and I know that there's some contention about whether or not. But at least the information we have is that they are sending in, minors to purchase these products. And the crazy thing is that in not all states is there an age restriction. It doesn't matter. If you're selling these products, you need to verify. Absolutely. That's the biggest thing. The second thing that's happening are these counterfeit products. So you have like some big name brand, I won't say it on this podcast, but you can imagine big brands of like, things that you buy at the convenience store.
Candy
I need some
snack.
chips.
It's all snacks.
It's all snacks. And those people are appropriating those brands and then putting, cannabinoids in them. Don't do that. Like, stop doing that. Seriously.
Cynthia goes off on a tangent about how they're just lazy, and it's correct. I mean, look, if you're taking a mass-produced, mass-market, big company, one of their products, and just throwing THC on it and essentially reusing the same packaging, that is horrendously stupid.
It's horrendously. Now, it's not all the hemp industry, to be clear. In fact, maybe it's not much of the hemp industry.
I've seen more of it in the marijuana industry than the hemp industry.
Exactly, but it's all getting blamed on the hemp industry. And even if the regulators don't come in, or law enforcement, which they will, this is again one of the major reasons they come in, you're going to get sued. By maybe you'd prefer to have the regulators come in than to have Nabisco.
The parent companies will sue you into oblivion.
Yeah, absolutely. So just stop doing that. There's people that are doing that. So those are the two primary issues. But of course, the big one is THCA flower. They're coming in because law enforcement for decades has been marijuana, cannabis flower has been this big issue, and it's hard for them to let go of that as being a thing. And they see flower and they're selling it to kids, and what the heck, this is a loophole of marijuana, blah, blah. So they're coming in and they're seizing all of this, and then they're testing it, and by and large, they're testing it the wrong way. It's then testing hot because they're heating it up, they're decarbing the THCA, converting it to Delta-9, and then the newscasts say they're selling hemp. I'm doing a lot of these today. I think it's because of all of these things that are these terms that are being used against us. But and they're saying that it's hemp, but it's actually tested at 15 times the legal level. Well, that's because they created marijuana out of the hemp that they took. But in terms of what stores should be doing, the days of where you could just buy flower and feel comfortable about it without much of a COA and chain of custody are gone. I mean, you need to have a certificate of analysis showing very clearly from a reputable lab that the Delta-9 levels are no more than 0.3%. And more, I was on a phone call with a client on the way here. We're talking about the chain of custody. What do we mean by a chain of custody? The certificate of analysis of the actual flower you're selling, a pre-harvest report. So if a hemp grower has to pass a pre-harvest report before they can harvest it, and then the hemp growers permit. It's hard to get that, and it's understandable because the wholesalers, the brokers don't want to reveal their sources because they don't want to be circumvented. That's a perfectly legitimate issue, but there are ways to deal with that. You can redact information. You can have a lawyer hold it and only sort of release the information in the event that the buyer needs it because of a legal action or what. That's all too beyond the scope of this call. But more and more, we want to rely on a true chain of custody for that because it will protect the seller. It protects the hemp industry to show that what we're doing is legitimate. We're not flipping, flower out of metric, in a regulated state, with marijuana state, and trying to sell it as hemp, and so on and so forth. I don't want to go down a big, get too deep in this, but they're going after THCA flower. The best way to protect yourself is to have that chain of custody.
Yeah, agreed fully. Man, I'm super stoked to have you here. Anything else you want to talk about? I love picking your brain and just kind of hearing what you're seeing and what you're dealing with. Anything else that you feel like might be relevant and might be worthwhile for people to know, and anything like that?
I think there's a few things, and I'll be quick on each. I kind of just like hot topics real fast. So one is, for anyone who's following Missouri, Missouri's been a really good hemp state. their outgoing lame duck governor passed an emergency order that we believe may have been sort of pushed by the big marijuana interests in the state. I know, surprise, surprise.
Really?
Yeah, to cut off most sales of hemp products. Wonderfully, the Secretary of State, under their legal system, the Secretary of State has some things to do to make these emergency orders impactful. Refused to do it, and so they got in a big public feud. It was kind of crazy. And now just very recently, the Missouri has released a memo saying, well, they're going to hold off on most of these raids. So we're almost back to status quo in Missouri, which I think is phenomenal for the people working in Missouri.
Well done.
Great job. Another big issue that's popping up is California. Historically one of the worst states for hemp. And Governor Newsom issued his own emergency order because he couldn't get some legislation passed that he really wanted passed. So he just overrode the democratic process and issued an emergency order that said that no hemp products with any detectable amount of THC could be
that
sold.
eliminates most CBD products.
Yeah, it eliminates hemp. I mean, it just eliminates hemp.
Everything.
It's ridiculous. And so he, at the behest of the big marijuana interest in the state, issued that order. And then of course he talks about how this is unregulated and blah blah blah. They've got AB 45, which was fought over for a while, and there's no perfect law, but it's if you're for regulation, it's pretty well regulated. But that's happening, and it's likely to result in a lawsuit. But right now, California is a tough spot. And then the last thing I'll say, and I'm happy to revisit any of this if you want to, is that if you have been on the sidelines, if you're in the industry and you're over here doing your thing, selling, doing whatever you're doing, if you want this industry to continue, now is the time to get involved. At a bare minimum, you need to tell your local and your federal representatives that you're in the industry and to keep hemp legal. You also need to donate. There are, a small handful of legitimate organizations that are doing fantastic work. You guys have done an amazing job. Thank you for all of your leadership.
I appreciate that. And I'd simply tell people, we're in self-preservation mode, right? Mm-hmm. We have to protect ourselves. And we learned very quickly that nobody else was going to do it for us. And so we've largely taken the stance from the very beginning that we had to be able to fight for ourselves and fend for ourselves, or we wouldn't be here.
Yeah.
And so that's the course of action that we've taken, and luckily it's worked. It's worked out really well.
It's worked out really well. There
Cynthia,
are victories.
God bless Cynthia.
Cynthia is fantastic.
I don't think people realize that essentially the entire industry is here because of Cynthia.
Cynthia has done an amazing job. She's fierce, she's smart, she's thoughtful. So yeah, she's done great. Thank you, Cynthia. But you need to get involved because we have an industry and we have a real opportunity now to determine what the future of cannabis looks like, not for next year, not for the next farm bill, maybe 10 to 20 years. Are we going to be bound and restricted to this Walmartization of weed that the big corporate interests want, where you have a very limited choice? If you want to participate in the industry, you got to just get a job with one of these giants, whatever, and go into a vertically integrated system? Or do you want to be able to, have your cannabis shipped to you at home, or can buy it at a nice boutique shop, or buy it at a grocery store? What's wrong with buying it at a grocery store or a convenience store, as long as it's not accessible to minors, it's made using proper good manufacturing practices, and that the labeling and all that is accurate? Why can't adults just make a decision for themselves? We do that with all sorts of other things, from tennis shoes to alcohol to health products to clothes. We make our own decisions, and that's what we need to do with cannabis. And so all that is to say, here we are. We're at a crossroads literally right now today, and in order for that to happen, you need to get involved. So please do.
I want you to give yourself a plug. And in case anybody doesn't know who Rod is, I'm sure a lot of you do. He is a phenomenal attorney. He works with people in Texas. He works with people all over the country. It doesn't really matter where you are. A lot of what he does is probably applicable. Give me sort of website, best way to contact you, plug your blog as well. Give me all of it, because I like giving you plugs because I love what you do and I love what you say, and I think it's important that people know that.
Well, I appreciate that. Rod Kight, K-I-G-H-T, like night with a K instead of an N. My blog or my website is cannabusiness.law. or just kitelaw.com. It all goes to the same place. And then my blog is Kight on Cannabis. And what I try to do is to write about these issues that are happening in a way that that says, here's what's happening, here's the legal analysis, usually for people that want to know but aren't lawyers, and that's what I try to do.
That's one of the things I love so much about what you do, is you don't have to be a lawyer to understand what you're saying and what you're arguing, and it makes a lot of sense. You have very good arguments, and so far everything that you said has held up, even on the THCO.
Right, yeah.
Even on the THCO recently with that Fourth Circuit court case. It confirmed everything that you've been saying about THCO all along, and there's been a lot of people that said he's wrong, and this and that, and blah blah blah. And here we go. We have Fourth Circuit Court confirming what you said was 100% correct.
Well, thanks. I appreciate that. That's all wonderful to hear and all that, but it's all actually pretty simple. You go to the Farm Bill, you read the definition of hemp, and people want to make it complicated, and this is not the intent, and they want to insert terminology. It's
changing the definition of synthetic. And
what does the law say? This is what it says.
It's
not. It's just not that complicated. This is the result of years and years of a drug war that we're still. These are the remnants of the drug war. It even still infects people who are ostensibly for cannabis reform. There's still this weird mindset about THC and cannabinoids and all that. So we're pushing through, and we're almost there, but the battle is not won. So we need to be fighting.
I think we forget too. You and I have been in this for a while now. Since arguably, 2018, 2019, somewhere in there. That's not that long. Cannabis was essentially illegal for nearly 100 years. And here we are, we're kind of like 5-6 years into it, and it's still in its infancy. I'm amazed at the amount of progress we've made. The Farm Bill paved the way for all of this to happen. And it's really fascinating watching it all play out. But I mean, I forget that we're literally in the infancy of this industry and of where it's going. And I get lost in that sometimes.
We're in the beginning of the beginning. I remember when, I got involved right around the time the 2014 Farm Bill was issued. I remember getting calls about CBD. I remember some of these fights that we're having on social media and regulators and law enforcement and infights. I remember when they were about CBD. Like CBD was like the big controversial thing. And what I keep saying is, it's just battle after battle. CBD was highly controversial, and now it's not controversial at all. Yeah. And then it was, Delta-8 and some of the intoxicating cannabinoids, and we're still feeling some of that.
Well, now it's THCA.
Yeah, now it's THCA.
It's like whatever everybody's pissed off most about, that's what they focus on. Right. The rest of it kind of goes away.
But we've won all these battles, and we've got a big one now. And so, sometimes it feels like a year, and this is like a decade. It's just so stick with it.
Especially with the biannual legislative sessions.
Oh my gosh.
Although I will say, I'd prefer biannual over annual.
Yeah, that's true.
I will say I'm very happy with biannual legislative sessions, because the annual legislative sessions are just brutal. You finish one legislative session and it's
bam, right
on to the next.
Well, what's interesting, Texas is unique in the country. And since we're sitting here in Texas, in good old Austin, Texas has one every 2 years, and hemp is on the menu. Hemp is on the agenda.
We've been working on this one for a long time.
Yeah, so Texas, we're going to see a whole lot of stuff happening with Texas coming up.
Yeah, this is going to be a fun session. I'm excited for it. And people are like, "How are you excited for this? They're trying to put you out of business." I'm like, look, this is no different than any other year. It's all the same. And I think, some people, people that are newer to the industry tend to get a little freaked out. Even we're doing job interviews right now. We're hiring, and I'm talking to people, and they're like, well, what about the lieutenant governor's interim charges? They're trying to put you out of business. I'm like, bro, this is like every other month. Like, this is nothing new. This is how it always is.
Yeah, welcome to the industry. Come on in. Yeah.
If you are uncomfortable with this is probably not the right place for you to work.
That's exactly right.
If you're cool with that, then hey, come join us.
If you like exciting, if you like waking up thinking it's going to be a normal day, and then something crazy happens, good, bad, or otherwise, this is the industry for you. I mean, again, cannabis use, it's healthy. I mean, that's a whole.
It's changed my life.
It's changed my life.
It's legitimately changed my life.
That's why we're here. And I talk to people like that all the time. I've had conversations with clients, and might sound weird coming from a lawyer, where I ended the conversation feeling teary, like like moved because people like changed their whole lives, whatever career they were in. They took all their money and they invested it in the hemp industry because they had had such a positive experience with cannabis, and for themselves or a family member because of an illness, just because of good, just trying to live a better life. And it's a very moving thing, and most people are passionate about it. And I just freaking love that.
Yeah.
I think it's great.
Yeah, it's very cool. It's very cool. Well, I think that covers pretty much everything. Thank you again for being with us. Everybody, Rod Kight, one of my favorite people on the planet, one of the best attorneys in the country. If you're in the hemp space, contact this guy. He can work magic for you. So thank you for joining us as always. Happy hunting and have a wonderful week. Hold on, I'm like mid burp.